So we are back on the chosen baseball journey with former MLB star Karim Garcia. I'm Jonathan A. Hacohen. And as promised last week, we're going to be talking about one of the greatest players to ever come out of Mexico. I gave Karim off the air one guess, and he nailed it. We are talking about the one, the only.
Fernando Valenzuela.
So tell me, Karim Garcia, having lived it and breathed it, for somebody that wasn't around in that generation, how do you describe Fernandomania?
Unbelievable. I mean, in Mexico, me growing up, everyone wanted to play for the Dodgers only because of Fernando Valenzuela. So in Mexico, you only watch the Dodgers when Fernando pitched. That was about the only time that you can watch Major League Baseball over there in Mexico.
And of course, you ended up going to the Dodgers inevitably. Was that because of Fernando?
Yes, it was. I mean, he was my idol from the beginning. You know, I wanted to play for the Dodgers because what Fernando represented for Mexico and for all the, not only the baseball players, for the whole country, you know. Even when I was a 6-year-old, I have a piñata made of Fernando Valenzuela. I have the picture and everything.
You
So
gotta
imagine that.
you gotta share that with us sometime. That's
I
incredible.
will.
So Fernando, surprisingly, so I was telling you, I don't know what happened to me because I as a young kid, I actually had a baseball encyclopedia, and that's what I would read at night. I was so enthralled with baseball and did not realize, even myself looking back, I was kind of stunned. Fernando played 17 seasons in the big leagues. Besides the Dodgers, we have the Angels, the Orioles, the Phillies, the Padres, the Cardinals. I remember him from 1980 to 1990. I didn't realize that there was this whole period up to 1997. I don't know, my brain just escaped me. I think it's because I always remember Fernando in the Fernando greatness, and I actually have a debate because people tend to say his Cy Young season, the 81 season, that was his best season of all. He was Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, finished fifth in the MVP voting. But I would actually argue, looking back at his statistics, his 1986 season was pretty damn good as well. 21-11, 3.14 ERA, 242 strikeouts, 1.155 whip, and get this, 20 complete games, okay? 20 complete games. Mr. Blake Snell, if you're listening, this is not 5 innings complete games. This is complete games. Kareem, in this day and age, in the year 2024, are we ever going to see a pitcher pitch 20 complete games ever again?
Never, never, ever again. It's impossible. As soon as they get 100 pitches, 110, they're gone. Unless you're the Maddox of that era, they can throw 77 to 85 pitches and throw 9 innings. I don't see it happening.
And while you'll say, okay, maybe that's what led to arm trouble, I don't know, man. It seems to me the less pitchers, starting pitchers are pitching and they're going 5, 6 max. You got this quality start thing where you have to pitch 6 innings and you give up 3 runs or less. You consistently give up 3 runs, let's say, and you pitch 6 innings. That's not the greatest stats on the planet, but that's considered a quality start. Yet guys seem more injured than ever. And you got the guys, the Rick Rushells of this world, the Nolan Ryans of this world. Go back and look at Nolan Ryan's stats. What? He pitched 180 pitches every freaking game out there. Did guys have better arms back in the day? What has happened?
I won't say better arms. I think they got great arms back in the days, but they were stronger arms for sure. And they were more prepared to throw in with a 2 or 3 days rest, especially if you go to the playoff. During the season, maybe you get 3 days rest, 4 days rest, and they were ready to go. But I mean, nowadays, you get in 4 to 5 days rest sometimes. They even put you on the disabled list or the injury list and get you extra 15 days to rest during the season so you don't get tired for the playoff and stuff like that, which is amazing, unbelievable to me, just even listening to that.
I kind of have a theory about this, and I think Steve Garcia may roll his eyes on me a lot, but that's okay. Like, I deserve it. But I feel like the pitchers today, I feel like the ones that are in the weight room all the time and really pumping iron hard, I feel like as a pitcher, it's better to have a looser arm. I feel like not to have a jacked up arm and jacked up tendons. And I feel like they're going in too muscular, maybe, and maybe overworking out. Whereas the guys in the off season, went off to live on the farm or wherever they went and used spring training to get in shape. I feel like those pitchers tend to do better, but that's just my impression.
I agree with you. I mean, just to get a couple examples, Bartolo Colon is one of them. When we were in Cleveland, he was a little bit heavy, a little chubby, uh and they tried to make him lose weight, and he went from throwing 99-mile-per-hour fastballs to 91 to 92. They say, like, you know what? Forget it. Continue to eat some hamburgers or whatever you're doing. we need your speed back. So he gained some weight back and started throwing hard again. CC Sabatia played with him in Cleveland too. Same thing. Another guy that needed the weight to throw, and he got a loose arm. Everything was fine with him. So just let it be. He wasn't on the weight room all the time. He did a workout, whatever he needed to do, but that was fine. I mean, he wasn't like every single day trying to, Iron Man over there.
Did Bartolo Colon ever see the inside of a weight room as far as you saw?
Yes, every time he went through the door going outside, he always got a glimpse of it in Cleveland, at least.
Anybody who disagrees with this, one of the most, if not the most famous baseball players of all time, Babe Ruth, right?
Yes.
It clearly worked for Babe Ruth, and I don't think Babe ever saw the inside of a weight room either. So, I'm not saying this is the model of how to look for starting pitching, but it certainly doesn't hurt. And Fernando, he also did not seem like a jacked type of guy. He had just a loose body. Some stats which I found very interesting. Now, six-time All-Star, he did get a Gold Glove, two Silver Slugger awards. I don't know if you're aware
Yeah,
of this or not. He
of
has
course.
lifetime 10 home runs. In 1984, Fernando hit 3 home runs and two in 1995. I went back and watched the tapes. This does not look like Rafael Palmeiro up to the bat. What was Fernando's secret of hitting as a pitcher?
I don't know. I think he was a hitter before he became a pitcher, because I remember back in the 80s watching games. Tom Lasorda would, take the pitcher out and put Fernando into pinch hit. Or he will pinch hit for the eighth hitter and put Fernando in. Even Fernando played the outfield one time when they run out of players. He played the right field.
So that's the secret. So there was a bat from day one over there.
Yes.
But he was still paid for the arm at the end of the day. And you're talking about a money pitcher, okay? He pitched in three different playoffs years. Lifetime, you ready for this? 5-1, 1.98 ERA in 9 games in the playoffs, 1.225 whip. So it doesn't matter what his stats are in the regular season. If you were a contending team, you want Fernando Valenzuela. But surprisingly enough, he went almost his whole career without getting traded. He was always a free agent. He only got traded once, and that was from the Padres to the Cardinals at the time with Phil Plantier, who was a very highly touted prospect back when he came up with the Padres. But it's amazing when I close my eyes and I think about Fernando Valenzuela, I only see the Dodgers. I can't picture him in any other jersey.
Yes. And as we all remember Fernando with the Dodgers, not with anyone else. And like you mentioned, when I got to see Fernando and take a picture with him when I was in the major leagues, I was with the Dodgers and he was with the San Diego Padres at the time. So imagine, my Chuck. I was in Chavez Ravine, me wearing the Dodgers uniform, and he had the San Diego Padres uniform.
Now, was that your first time meeting him in person?
No, I got to meet Fernando back in 1988 when he came to my hometown to play golf over there, and I play him at the golf course. I met him at the golf course.
We didn't get to play him back then.
No, no, no. He was a good player, golfer and baseball player, both of them.
And now, as we talked about in previous episodes, he also was coaching with Team Mexico in the WBC, the World Baseball Classic. What was it like to be coaching and working with him as a coach in the Team Mexico?
I just went over there to say to him and try to talk to pick his brain. just to, chat a little bit about the major leagues and stuff like that. He was with the pitchers most of the time, but when he had a free time, I always tried to go over there and talk to him with him and with Teddy Higuera. That was the other pitching coach. So with both of them.
Buddy, I don't know how you're reading my mind, but that was the name I was literally about to drop. You are so good because I remember back in the day getting to meet Teddy Higuera back when he was starring with the Milwaukee Brewers. Teddy Higuera was another just loose arm, seemed like a guy who just showed up to work, no complaints. What was it for players coming up and about seeing Teddy Higuera as well as Fernando Valenzuela as far as the effect that it had on them?
It was great, because those the guys that were our idols. We remember Fernando throwing a no hitter, and the same day I think Teddy Guerra threw a no hitter too. So that was big news back in Mexico. I mean, everywhere, but two Mexicans throwing no hitters not only in the same year but in the same day. It was impressive. Both of them left-handers, and both of them idols for each one of us over there in Mexico.
Now, Fernando Valenzuela walks through the streets of San Diego, St. Louis. He's probably left alone, I imagine, at this stage. In Los Angeles, some Dodgers fans would recall him. It depends if he's wearing his glasses and how he's done up. When he walks through the streets of Mexico, he's probably stopped every 2 seconds.
I don't think he's going to be walking in the streets of Mexico to begin with. He might get to a restaurant in a car and try to get a private place so he can actually get to eat, because he's still so famous over there that, I mean, to this point, he's not able to walk, on the streets of Mexico.
That's incredible. That's incredible to know. And that's where when you're in a major league stadium and you're watching him play in St. Louis or San Diego, you can't even envision what it's like back home and the effect that they have. And I would argue that, Fernando Valenzuela doesn't come up with the Dodgers Fernandomania. I think the baseball scene in Mexico is very, very different for years to come. I mean, think about your own status. No Fernando Valenzuela growing up, you may not end up with the Dodgers even. Your whole career may change as a result.
Absolutely. I would probably sign with someone else, maybe the Yankees, because that's the other team that we watched back in the days. So I would end up with the Yankees or another organization besides the Dodgers.
Now, to give Fernando his due, he did get two World Series rings, by the way. I went to look it up. So he did win in that, obviously, in the 81 season. That
88.
magical 88 season, the one that they weren't expected to win, and Oral Hershiser was pitching out of his mind. Fernando was on the roster. He did not pitch in the World Series, but he did get a ring over there. Now, 17 seasons, major league career. What do you think his career earnings were listed according to Baseball Reference?
Uh, in contracts by himself, probably like 20 million tops, 25.
If you're going to Vegas right now and you have to put down one number, what would you put down? 17 seasons? How much would you guess? According to Baseball
Uh,
Reference.
I will say probably 25 million.
You should have stuck with the 20 million. That was a lot closer. It was 17 million. So now to put it to relative terms, right?
Yeah.
You think about an average decent starter that has a 10 and 10 record with a 4.5 ERA. He's getting 12 million in his sleep, right? Easily, easily, easily.
Yeah.
Fernando at tops, I think and ended up earning between 3 to 5 million, but 17 million for his career. Not too shabby. I mean, in those dollars back then, when you consider inflation, like 17 million back then bought you a lot more than 17 million buys you right now. But
Yeah.
baseball was a lot different, and free agency was a lot different. And it would have been nice to have Fernando stay his whole career with the Dodgers. I think that would have been a great thing. But unfortunately, pitching is the most volatile of all the positions, obviously, because it feels like it's not natural to throw that hard that much, right? And at any point, the arm can just go. Even, Steve and I were talking about Steve Garcia and his son, going to high school. His son's a shortstop. He's not a pitcher. Pitchers don't let their kids become pitchers. And I think the reason is if you're going to have a longer career in the majors at the end of the day, generally position players win out. What are your thoughts on the subject matter? If you had a son with talent that was both a pitcher and a hitter, where would you encourage him to go as far as position wise?
Oh, absolutely. A hitter. I will take care of him as a hitter, work out with him every day. pitcher is very difficult, plus they have a shorter careers at the end of the day, because like you mentioned, you can get injured at any time. And with the hitters, if you get injured but you have the power and you hit for average, you can still be a DH, you can still play the game.
And this is where also, a lot of analysts are saying some players sign too cheap, too early in their career. Lacuna for one. Why would you sign for 10 years, 150 million? If you waited, you could have got 300 million. My argument is, and you could correct me, Karim, if you think I'm wrong on it. By the time you get to free agency, a lot of variables could happen. You have spring training, you have a 162 game season, you have the playoffs, you have the off season. All it takes is one ball to the head, one ball to the eye, one pulled this, one torn that. If I'm early off in my career and I say to myself, you know what? Yeah, if I bet on myself and I wait 3, 4 years, maybe I'll double my money, but I could end up with zero. For me, I'm always taking the sure money. If I'm a rookie, 2, 3 years in, you want to sign me to 10 years, 150 million? I can live off that. I don't need 3, 400 million. What are your thoughts on the subject matter? Am I off base or what would you do?
You're absolutely correct. I mean, take the money right away is guaranteed because that's the only guaranteed thing that you have in baseball right now. Like you mentioned, 2, 3 years, you can have an accident, you can hurt your back, anything can happen. You see what happened to Prince Fielder towards the middle of his contract with Texas. He hurt his back, his neck, couldn't actually finish the contract, but it was a guaranteed contract. Why not get 10 years? Acuña's going to be 30 and he's going to get another huge contract by the time he finishes this one or get an extension through that one.
How many times now you've been around baseball for so long? How many times have you walked into spring training and this guy walks in, first round draft pick, can't miss. This guy's gonna be a star for 20 years. He's gonna go to the Hall of Fame. 2 years later, we never hear from them again. Over and over and over, right?
I've seen it way too many times. Even the guy Darren Draper, remember him?
Absolutely. By the way, we got 55 million.
Yes, but he unfortunately he was a workhorse, but he get injured a lot of times. Unfortunately for him, then and that was a guy that they say is can miss type of guy. Unfortunately, the injuries didn't help him.
No, and sometimes they get injured and they're done, and sometimes they come back even stronger. I remember Kurt Schilling was fairly injured at the beginning of his career when he was with Baltimore, right? And Houston, and then he found his way eventually to Boston and had a revitalization. And except for his political views, he'd be in the Hall of Fame right now, considering his stats. So some guys, take off later in their careers. But this is why I think teams are not that afraid to trade prospects always because there's never a guarantee with a prospect. If you get a surefire guy to come into your lineup for a year or two and you win the World Series, you're doing it. Like I remember back when John Smoltz got traded by Detroit, right? John
Yeah.
Smoltz, local Detroit kid, gets traded for Doyle Alexander. Doyle Alexander did his job for the Tigers. He went like 10-1 or whatever he did. It made sense at the time, but you given up a Hall of Fame arm. But John Smoltz could have easily gone 5-30 for his career and been out of baseball 3 years later. So you just never ever know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ultimately, Fernando, when he came up for his first 5, 6 seasons, this looked like a for sure Hall of Famer. Ultimately, just what do you think it was? It was bad luck at the end of the day from an injury standpoint. I mean, he had his wind up was very unique, right? The Fernando wind up. Now, I think that's where they got it from Japan, honestly. I think all these Japanese pitchers watched Fernando back in 1981, and that's where they got it from. But it didn't seem like a jerky motion as far as putting too much stress on his shoulder. To me, it just seems like bad luck. He's a pitcher, and that's how it goes.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's bad luck. He was a workhorse, but he got way too many innings, way too many pitches. If you talk about complete games, you're talking about a complete game like 20 complete games in one season. How many pitches did he throw in that complete game? 140, 150 pitches.
Easy.
Back in those days, they didn't have a pitch count. If you can finish the game, La Sorda was going to let you finish the game. And especially Fernando, we had a full house, in Dodger Stadium.
And this is where, I bring up Nolan Ryan all the time. I think about Bert Blyleven, think about Jack Morris. This was a standard for a lot of these guys, but There's a reason why Jack Morris and Bert Blyleven in our Hall of Fame and very few guys are. I think it works out to barely 1% of the players that ever end up playing Major League Baseball will end up being in the Hall of Fame itself. And
Yeah.
so, but I can't picture Jack Morris and Bert Blyleven pitching 5, 6 innings and getting pulled out for relievers. They would have choked out their manager. That wasn't an option back then.
Absolutely. Even Fernando too. He threw 7 innings and he felt like he wasn't working enough.
There we go. So the greatness of Fernandomania from a guy who lived and experienced, met him, Karim Garcia. So we'll be back next week. And next week, we're going to discuss if Karim was going in the hall, which hat would he wear? Let's think about that. We'll see you all back real soon on the Chosen Baseball Journey.